Greetings, everyone. Nickie Brown here. No matter where you are and what part of the world you are in, I hope that you are having a good day. This is officially my first video coming out as a master life coach. So, um, one of the first things I wanted to do is review a video. And basically, once you start on your healing journey, there are several ways that you can get started. And depending on your coach, they may have different methods for you in order to get some of the trauma out and to start the healing process. So, one of the people that I actually um, I like the advice this person gives and the strategies this person utilizes. So I'm going to talk about, well, it's actually two people in one. Um, um, Lewis Howe from the School of Greatness. He interviewed Stephan Laboussier. He is Haitian, or Haitian, as most people say. And he goes by the pen name or pseudonym Stephan Speaks. So he's more commonly known as Stephan Speaks. And the video that I watched on YouTube was titled Biggest Dating Problems Why 80% of People Can't Find Love. He also mentioned in the video that 80% of people, he would say that 80% of people are not in loving relationships or good relationships. So there's only about 20% of people, in his opinion, that are in healthy, happy relationships. So that's very interesting. But I wanted to mention the fact that he made a few statements in regarding to some popular quotes that people say. Mainly women, but I've heard a few men say this as well, right? If you can't accept me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. And basically, his response to that was lack of accountability. It's a lack of accountability and responsibility for your own growth, right? Um, well, a lack of accountability and responsibility for growth. So, a lot of people don't want to grow. They don't want to change. They want to stay the same because it's very uncomfortable to heal yourself, to deal with those emotions and face them head on, as opposed to pushing them down and suppressing them and saying, I'm okay, I'm good, everything is fine, life is fine, and knowing that really deep down they're hurting on the inside, and and 80% of them are in unhealthy, unhappy relationships, right? Um, Also, some people say arguing is healthy for a relationship. This is something I have never agreed with. Um, Now, I have not always spoken up about this when I've heard people say it, but um, it doesn't feel good to argue. I don't think that there's anything good about arguing at all. Um, Being yelled at, being cursed at, you know, I don't think that there's anything that's healthy about it at all, right? So I agree with him when he says arguing. Um, well, what he said is um, disagreement is acceptable. Disrespect is not, because arguing, yelling at and cursing at somebody, and things of that nature is disrespectful. No matter who it's coming from, it's a form of disrespect, right? Um, so he says disagreement is acceptable, disrespect is not. Yes, it is okay and even healthy to have disagreements because we have different perspectives and we can bounce ideas off of each other. We simply need to know how to navigate that and come to an official decision on things when we have those moments. But arguing says we are being disrespectful. Whether our tone is negative, it's the words we are using. We are getting loud, angry. We are basically throwing negative energy at our partner. Um, and I went on to include not just your partner. This could be a relative, a friend, a coworker, an associate, acquaintance, whoever it is. That's not healthy. He says that's not healthy. There's nothing healthy about it. But a lot of people will say that because they want to validate the unhealthiness in their relationship. They don't want to face the issues of, I need to learn how to talk to my partner better. And again, I would add to that, I need to learn how to talk to people better in general. Most people will excuse and justify bad behavior. It doesn't make it okay though, because it's not, right? Then he went on to say, this was very interesting, and this is one of the things that prompted me to do this video. People will ask, why do I have to fix my tone? Why do I have to watch what I say? Because that's what adults do, he says. Grow up. Right? You know, what I call them is adult temper tantrums. You're having an adult temper tantrum. You can say how you feel and you can say what you're thinking without being nasty, without yelling, without being condescending, without being sarcastic. Although I do have a sarcastic sense of humor, I don't mean any harm. And I acknowledge that perhaps that's something that I need to work on, because some people can't take it. Now, if there is somebody who, you know, their understanding of my sarcastic sense of humor, because again, I don't mean any harm by it. I'm just very direct and blunt in certain situations, and it's never coming from a mean place, because I don't. Those are not ever my intentions, unless I feel like in those situations where I felt like I was defending myself, then it was intentional. But you know, just having a regular conversation. And two, I have a tendency to speak the truth, and some people don't like to hear the truth. That's a whole nother story, though, right? He also says we can't just think it's okay, especially with our partner, to speak however we want, to throw all kinds of insults, be disrespectful, and think that it is okay. Again, in my mind, what I call it is an adult temper tantrum. It's For me, it's very immature to not be able to tell someone what you're thinking or how you feel without cussing them out or yelling at them. It's not necessary, right? Because what people are not realizing is all it takes is that one really bad argument to plant a seed of negativity that now grows into something worse in the relationship. A lot of people's issues are not the issue that they are facing in the current moment. How many people hold stuff in, right? You hold it in, it builds up, and then you have an outburst towards that person or even somebody else who doesn't even deserve it. But it's because you've been through this same behavior with someone else, and so you internalized it. And now when somebody else on the outside, maybe a coworker, exhibits this same behavior, you may lash out at that person, and they don't even deserve it. They may not even realize what they're doing. They don't know you've had this issue with somebody else that you are related to, or that, you know, your spouse for a long time. They don't know anything about that. Okay, he went on to say a lot of people's issues are not the issue that they are facing in the current moment. It's the culmination of all kinds of things before it. It's the build up from the last time you disrespected me or made me feel some kind of way. And ever since then, I have resented you, and now with this resentment, I have given you an attitude. You don't know what the attitude was about because I didn't communicate clearly. Now you've given me attitude, and now do you see how it turns into other things, right? Now that attitude turns into not having sex with each other. That attitude turns into the way we talk to each other in general. Maybe we start becoming secretive because we don't feel like dealing with each other anymore. And what people don't realize is it started from disrespectful arguing. It could also start from other stuff, but arguing is a huge problem for a lot of people, and we can't just keep sweeping it under the rug. consistent negative behavior has to be addressed and connected and corrected. Okay? Again, this is Stephan Speaks or Stephan Labussier. Okay? So that's the first part of it. Now, he also gave suggestions. Lewis basically, usually his videos are at least an hour long, an hour and a half, 2 hours long. But they're really thorough. He's a great interviewer, and he really pulls out what needs to be discovered from this person. And I know that Mr. Labussier has been on his show apparently at least 3 or 4 times. And this is not the first episode I've watched. And I want to say that I've watched this same episode prior to becoming a life coach. I was in school for 8 months. And so my perspective has changed slightly. I was already on a healing journey, and I had already started doing some of the things that I learned in class. But in order to be a coach, you have to be coached. You have to go through the process so you can thoroughly explain and be a very efficient and effective coach for other people. Going to life coaching school is not a necessity. There are people who coach who have not been to life coaching school or class. There are some quick life coaching classes where you can just pay like $800 and you go for the weekend. You practice coaching each other with other students, and then you get your certificate, and then that's it. So there are different types of coaching programs, and so if you decide to take one, that's totally up to you. But again, there are people who have never been through a coaching program, yet they are still great motivational speakers and leaders in their own right? But this is what Lewis Howes referred to as Boot Camp 101. Now, I don't know if this is what Stephan refers to it as. I do know he has several books, so I don't know if this is what he calls it in his book, because I will admit that I have not read his books. But I'm going to just go over some of the things that he mentioned. I think this is a great way to help people heal. That's a great start, at least. It's not an all-inclusive list. It's really just 2 steps, but these 2 steps are very important. Now, over the years, when I've coached people, I have advised them to write it down. And a lot of times people suck their teeth or they grit and grime and they say, oh, well, I have done that, right? Because again, people don't want to go through this process of pulling those emotions out. It's not the easiest thing to do. You do get emotional. Sometimes you'll walk away from it when you start to cry or get emotional. Because again, it's not the easiest thing to do. So let's go ahead and read about what he had to say. And I'm going to try to make this quick because my laptop is dying. I charged my phone, but I didn't think about the laptop. Okay, so we're calling this Boot Camp 101, recognizing what you need to heal and how to start healing that. So this was Lewis Howes' question to Stephan, right? And again, the name of the video is Biggest Dating Problems, Why 80% of People Can't Find Love. And you can find that on YouTube. What Stephan says is time alone. Well, what most people say, this is another quote that is very common. Time alone heals all wounds. No, it doesn't, he says. Time alone doesn't heal a damn thing. Right? So step 1 is the who hurt me list. Now, as a coach, it's ironic that I call my list who hurt you as well. His is who hurt me, mine is who hurt you. So again, the way that you help people to heal is going to be different depending on the coach. But because we all have similar thought processes, some of the things that we say or do may be similar in our technique, and the tools that we use in order to help people to get to their best selves, right? So again, step one is the who hurt me list. And this is why I find this very interesting. His write down, you could also type it on your computer or voice record it if that's better for you. The only thing I say about the voice recording is if someone finds this voice recording and they decide to listen to, I mean, I know that they can find your writing, right? But they may or may not read it depending on how long it is. But if they find your voice recording and they're, decide to publish it, like post it on social media, that might not be a good thing, but we're not going to think about that part. Whatever you need to do to get it out. But that thought did occur to me, it getting into the wrong hands. I'm just saying. I know that everybody's living situation is different, and my diary was read when I was younger, so I know that would be something really uncomfortable if it was shared. And you'll understand why when I continue reading. Again, first step, the who hurt me list. Write down the name of every person who comes to mind. Every person. Don't leave anybody out, whether it be past, present, or future. I don't know. You could decide you're going to be mad at somebody tomorrow. Okay, so write down the name of every person who comes to mind. It doesn't matter how long ago it happened. It doesn't matter if you think you have moved past it. It doesn't matter if you think it is not relevant. If they come to mind, then there is some level of relevance there. Put them down on paper and a sentence or two about what they did to hurt you. Okay. This is how we are going to start to locate what we have been holding on to. I remember my grandmother used to say, if you don't tell what's on your mind and you keep holding it in, it's going to make you sick. And I used to think she meant sick, because I was a little girl when she said it. And I was like, what is this crazy lady talking about? I'm not sick. But now I completely understand what it means. We have to go into this exercise very genuine and can't try to control the narrative. You just have to let yourself feel. And that's one of our biggest problems. We don't allow the feelings to come up and out when we're going through these emotions. We tend to suppress them and push them down as if they don't exist and ignore it and act like we're okay when we're really not. And a lot of us are very sensitive. And then we feel like we can't be sensitive and vulnerable in front of other people because they're going to bully us or tease us, or just not honor us in a way that makes us feel comfortable, or not validate those feelings, right? So ask yourself the question, close your eyes, and let it come out. So again, the question is, who hurt me? Now this is where it gets interesting. Okay? He says we will be... Uh-oh. I went too far. When you begin to heal the big ones, when you begin to heal the big ones, you will start to see that most of the other ones are just a pattern of that same pain. The time frame depends on the situation. So how long it's going to take? This was a question that Lewis House asked, and I don't know if this came from his audience or if this is just a question, part of his interview process. But his question was basically, how long is it going to take? So Stephan's response was basically, the time frame depends on the situation. So it depends on who hurt you, right? In some cases, it's going to get heavy. It may cause you to want to pause and take a step back, but don't run from it. Okay? The second step, get things off your chest. Get things off of your chest. The letter writing process. And I said this is where things get interesting, but I jumped the gun a little bit. Okay, so basically, you're going to be writing a letter. And during my coaching program, I wrote a letter, but I was very diplomatic and compassionate and understanding, um, which has its place, right? But he says there's two parts to the letter writing process, basically two drafts. So you're going to have a first draft and a second draft. The first draft is the most important. This is where we are essentially going to have an emotional detox. You have to get everything out. For example, he said, so let's say a person on the list is your mother. I will always bring up mothers because so many people have mommy issues, but the world only wants to talk about daddy issues, right? Society has almost made it wrong for you to tell a woman she was a bad mother or to criticize your mother, so we suppress that a lot more than we do our fathers. I told you it was going to get interesting. Okay? He says in the first draft, let it all out. Okay, in the first draft, let out all of your raw emotion. He said, I don't care if you cuss her out. I don't care if you wish death on her. I don't care what nasty, evil thing you say. However you feel, let it come out. You've got to let the anger and the hurt all pour out of you into this letter. If you don't know how to start the letter, start it with the most damning thing you can say. It's interesting because I was on YouTube the other day and I saw this woman is coming out with a book. It's someone that I follow on YouTube and I don't remember her name. But the title of her book is I Hate My Mother. And I was like, oh my goodness, like you're not supposed to say that. But again, society tells us that. But who said that you're not supposed to say that? If that's how she feels, that's how she feels. Another example, he says, I hate you because, and whatever the reasons are for you. And just go from there. Allow yourself to detox. This is not the draft to be politically correct, to try to frame things in the right way. I don't want you to be considerate. I don't want you to think I did some things wrong too. Forget all of that. This draft is to let it rip. Let it out. And like I said, I wrote a letter to my mom, but I was very diplomatic and I was very considerate. And I said, I was grammatically correct when I wrote the letter. I don't even think I did any code switching. I was just very, well, considerate and compassionate in this letter. And perhaps that was a hindrance because that's not how I wanted to say it. That's not how I really feel about it. So this is one of the reasons why, again, I decided to talk about this particular topic because I think this is very important. Say it how you mean it. And it's funny because, again, when I coach people, I tell people all the time, say it like you mean it. Mean what you say and say what you mean. Don't hold back. Tell your truth. This is your truth, if this is your truth. And again, this is for your eyes to see. Okay, so once you've written that letter and you've gotten it out and you've said it like you mean it, take a step back, right? Put it away. He says pray, meditate, and get to a level place of calm mentally, then read the letter to yourself as if you were them. This man is a genius, right? Put yourself in their shoes, and anything that comes off as attacking, condescending, or blatantly insulting, you are going to change it. Not changing the message, you are just changing your delivery of the message. Learn how to deliver the message without a negative tone or horrible delivery. Turn it into a loving, positive message, but that does not mean you won't say some things that aren't hurtful to them or a hard pill for them to swallow. There is a difference between lashing out and saying how you feel. This is how I perceive things instead of you are this or that. So it's basically you're not accusing. This is your perception. This is how you received how the experience of what happened or what was said to you, right? But you're not saying, "Oh, you did this to me" or "You did that to me." So basically, again, there's a difference between lashing out, you did this and this is your fault. That's not what this is about. Right? This is saying, you know, when you said you didn't want me, that hurt my feelings or that made me feel uncomfortable. Something along those lines. The purpose is to release your emotions. That's the purpose of this exercise. And Stephan speaks, he considers himself a relationship coach. And he has written several books. I've listed 3 of them. One of them is Find Love After Heartbreak, He Who Finds a Wife, and The Man God Has for You. And basically, his books are centered around creating healthy relationships with the right people. And of course, if you would like to know more of his steps and how, again, he calls himself a relationship coach. So, he's a relationship coach, so he specifically deals with relationships. And I think more specifically relationships between men and women. But again, he used his writing exercise. The first person he used as an example was the mother. So obviously he goes into other relationships as well, at least to help you to heal. Because in that list, it could be anybody for you. Okay? So, and then of course you can find that video on YouTube. And again, the name of the video is The Biggest Dating Problems, Why 80% of People Can't Find Love. Right? So I'm taking it a step further. And I'm asking you, as a child, when you were yelled at or name called for the first time, did you like it? Right? A lot of times, we have a tendency to repeat behaviors that were done to us. But if we think back to the first time that we remember it being done to us, we didn't like it. Did you cry? Did you get angry? What was that emotion that came up in you the first time you were yelled at, cursed at, name called, teased, belittled, insulted in some way? So again, when you write this letter and you get ready to change it, speak to this person the way that you would want them to speak to you. In other words, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The version of you who didn't like it. Not the version of you that has now said, "Oh, people yell and that's healthy." No, it's not. That mindset is not healthy. That mindset is not healthy, right? But this reminds me of A Time to Kill, the movie A Time to Kill. At the end, when he was deliberating to the jury, and he was recapping the story of what happened to the little girl and the guy, right? And when he talked about the little girl, when he was done speaking, the last thing he said to the all-white jury or all Caucasian jury was, "Now imagine she was white." That tugged at their heartstrings. Because before that, they were a little disconnected from the story. I can sit and listen to a story all day, but if I can't relate to it, it doesn't affect me. Oh, well, that was those people and their problem. Unless you're an empath. But usually, jurors, they pick people who maybe aren't so sensitive. They don't usually pick highly sensitive people because a highly sensitive person would normally answer the questions in a way that would not get them chosen to be on the jury, whether it's intentional or unintentional, right? And we know that hurting people hurt people. And a lot of times, these experiences that we've been through, we've been suppressing them for years, decades even. But everything is an experience, and experiences we're supposed to learn from. Um, so when you're dealing with people, or, you know, and again, I'm going to just continue to use the example of the mother. When you write this letter to her, um, so this is your second draft. Your first draft, you're just letting it rip, right? But in your second draft, you may or may not decide to send this letter to your mother. So, and did I finish reading that part? Yeah, I did. I think. Yeah, I read it. So in the second draft, you're basically rewriting the letter, and you may or may not send this to your mother or give this to your mother. Again, we're just using the mother as an example because that's what Stephan used as the example in the video. Take into consideration, don't just take into consideration how you felt when you were spoken to or treated the same way for the first time. Um, Because what did he say? Learn how to deliver the message without a negative tone or horrible delivery. So, in doing so, take into consideration again, hurting people hurt people. And they had their own experiences. And these experiences they may have been suppressing for decades. So, let's say your mother's in her 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even 100 years old. Right? This, whatever treatment she's giving you may have been done to her at some point in her life. She never healed from that. And she's been suppressing it for decades. Potentially. Also, take into consideration mental illness, addictions, fear, insecurities, self doubt, and lack of self worth. So, when you write this letter, you're going to write the second draft with more compassion. Again, you may not decide to give it to her, but you're writing this second draft as if you were talking to yourself. So, you're pretending that you are your mother. And for some people, your mom may have transitioned already. But if it's still some pain that you've been holding on to for some of the things that may have been said or done over your lifetime, you still need to heal that. And you can't allow what society has told you to stop you from healing. You have to still get it out of you. Because it obviously hurt you, and you may not realize how it's affecting your relationships and potentially preventing you from being in a happy, healthy relationship. And wondering why, a lot of people don't like to use the word attraction, right? Or they don't like the concept of the law of attraction. But we don't attract what we want, we attract who we are. So, what is inside of you that is drawing in people who have similar or the same experiences and who have also unhealed those experiences? Oftentimes, a lot of people are suffering from a fear of rejection and a fear of abandonment. Was this someone in your life emotionally or mentally disconnected? Or were they physically absent? Because emotional absence, uh, spiritual absence, mental absence, it still hurts. It still makes you feel rejected and abandoned. And so then we wonder why sometimes we attract people who are emotionally unavailable. It's because we're still emotionally unavailable in some way, shape, form, or fashion. A lot of people will reject um, or self sabotage relationships. I was just coaching someone the other day, and he um, mentioned an ex. And this ex, and a lot of women are like this, they feel like, oh, well, I'm just going to have sex. I'm not going to allow anyone to get close to me because they're just going to leave anyway. Men do this too. So this is not just about women. I'm not, um, picking on women. But I think that maybe women more so do this than men do. I could be wrong about that, but I do think that women are more prone to do this than men are. Um, but of course, men have mommy issues too and daddy issues too. So they automatically say, this person is too good to be true. This man or this woman is too good to be true. This is not going to work out. They're going to reject me at some point, or they're going to abandon me at some point, or they're going to leave. And so what's the purpose? Why bother? I'm going to hurt them before they hurt me, or I'm going to leave them before they leave me, or I'm just going to make this thing about sex um, so that I don't get emotionally involved and, just leave it at that. But sometimes that doesn't even work. Because sometimes this person is so good that you can't help but be in a relationship with them. But then sometimes people will be in long-term relationships or even get married and then decide. I remember somebody saying years ago that her husband was too kind. And did she say he didn't give her enough attention too? So I know that with her dad passed away when she was a teenager, and apparently he gave her a lot of attention, but she had mommy issues because her mom was mean to her. And so, being that she lost her dad at a young age, um, her mother continued to be mean to her because her mother would have whatever anger issues from whatever happened to her in her life that she never healed. And her mom left here as an unhealed, you know, what they call angry black woman. And that happens to a lot of people. And it's very unfortunate, but we do want to, if you want to, I mean, you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. And nobody's going to say anything. You'll just continue to live your life as you always have, and that'll be that. But if you want to heal, again, one of the things that I have always recommended for years is to start writing. But for me, this takes it one step further. Don't just write it, say it like you mean it. And again, when I wrote my letters, and I've written several letters to her over the years, when I was in my coaching program, it came out different. And again, I was trying to be, very diplomatic in the letter. Not that I even planned to give it to her. And but there always has to be a balance, right? Because if you did decide to give this letter to your mother, you don't want to be unreceptive, right? Because let's use Iyanla Van Zant for example. I think that her coaching style has its place, and I think that some people need to be coached in the way that she coaches. I know that some people think it's a little abrupt, um, a little sharp. Maybe even some might say that it's mean. But some people get the message. Some people like Shay, the young lady from Love and Hip Hop. I don't remember which city, But she wasn't trying to hear that. But then you have to wonder if she was ready to heal at the same time. But she didn't appreciate Iyanla's coaching style. And that's fine because it was either that she wasn't ready to heal or really she was offended by some of the things that she was saying. And everybody's not going to like everybody or every coach that they deal with. You may just have to find someone that you can relate to or feel as if you can relate to. But in a one-on-one session, see, this is another thing. Some of the things are sensationalized for TV. Because in a one-on-one session, you may not necessarily speak to someone that way. There's another young lady, and she's more of a business coach, but I don't want to even use the word aggressive because again, I think that some people need Eric Thomas. Eric, is that his name? Eric Thomas. He's a motivational coach as well. He's very blunt and direct. He's from Chicago. He's like, yo, he's loud. And he's like, yo, this is what you need to do. And I'm telling you, you need to get up early. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's straight no chaser. Like cognac. That yak. There ain't no ice in it, that mug or nothing. When he give it to you, he'll give it to you raw. It's like, conscious rap versus hardcore rap. Everybody is going to relate to somebody different because if you grew up in an environment where you were used to somebody yelling, then he's somebody you can relate to because it doesn't bother you and it doesn't offend you. I'm not offended by him at all. But for those people who were very sensitive, now I'm sensitive, but again, his coaching style doesn't bother me. Somebody yelling directly at me or cursing at me is where my sensitivity comes in. But I can totally relate to his coaching style if you understand the difference of what I mean. But somebody who grew up in an environment like, I've noticed a lot of Southerners, they're like, oh, why are you so loud? I'm from New Jersey. We talk loud. Not everybody, but the people I grew up around, we talk loud. I'm not saying anything to personally offend you or hurt you or harm you. I don't mean no harm by it at all. Sometimes I'm loud, especially when I get excited or passionate about what I'm talking about. But I don't mean any harm. But again, for certain people, they're very sensitive and they can't take it. And they get offended. Oh, you yelled at me. What? I didn't yell at you. I'm just speaking in a higher volume. What are you talking about? But if they grew up in a home with both parents and, the mom was very soft-spoken and the dad, maybe he wasn't loud and he was, he maybe was soft-spoken. It's not necessarily soft-spoken like a woman from that perspective, but just not loud, I guess. And they were professional and, or she stayed home or whatever that looked like. It was a different environment. I noticed that a lot of people from the South are like that, whereas, people from northern states, we're more direct and blunt in our approach to things. And there's nothing wrong with either style. But again, some people will gravitate more towards a certain style than others. Some people can't stand Eric Thomas. They can't even listen to him for 5 minutes. I'm not gonna say who I feel that way about, but there's a certain pastor I be like, why he's so loud? Like what? I can't relate to him at all. Like I can relate to some of the things that he say, but he's just, for me, it's just too much. So everybody has their preference. So again, I feel like Iyanla has her certain place. But I don't know if she's like that in a one-on-one session, or if again this is some TV sensationalism. But like I was saying, she didn't appreciate her style of coaching at all. But then again, I ask, was she ready to heal? So again, this is an exercise you can do if you want to. The first draft being you actually saying what you mean and meaning what you say, and not being passive aggressive or considerate. Not thinking that, oh well, I did things too, or this is my mother, or you're not supposed to say that about your mother. None of that should be in your mind. If you got in trouble and when she closed the door you was cussing her out, write that in the letter when you were little, because some of us did that. But again, over the years, somebody made you feel guilty about, oh, well, you only get one mother and all of those different things that people say. Forget all of that when you're writing your first draft. But then in your second draft, write it as if you're speaking to yourself and or as if you're actually going to give it to her, and take, or whoever you're writing it about, and then take into consideration, okay, this person has been through things. This person has their own issues. Some of the things that they have said or done that you experience with them, they may not have even done intentionally, because people have a tendency to repeat the behaviors that they were done to them, and they start to normalize them as if this is acceptable behavior and as if it was okay. But it was never okay. It just became normalized in their mind, and they made it become acceptable. But yelling and cursing people out, or beating someone, or whatever you feel like you experience with this person is not okay. I had to stop using corporal punishment on my son when he was probably like 8 years old. It really, half the time it doesn't work. But when you have both parents there and they're balancing out those energies, the father could just say something and the kid gonna fall in line. Because I don't know what it is. I promise you, my son was like that from birth. When his father would say something, this when he was like say 9 months to 1 years old, something somewhere around in that time frame. When his father would say something, he would immediately stop. If I said it, I had to say it 3, 4 times, and he still wouldn't pay attention to me. I had to literally turn him around or say it in his face, or you know, actually physically get him to stop doing whatever it was, playing with a light socket or whatever. He didn't pay my voice no mind at all. And so I realized, it's not about, I don't know, there's some type of authority or dominance in the male voice that, again, they don't even have to yell. They can just say it. And again, the kids falls in line. They might even start crying. It's funny. But yeah, remember when it happened to you for the first time too. And did you like it? Did you cry? So that's all I got for y'all. I hope that was helpful. I don't have anything else to say for this video. But of course I'll be back for another. And Maria. I love y'all, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or evening. So no matter where you are, in what part of the world you are in what time of day it is, I hope that you enjoy the rest of it. I hope too that you use these tools to help you begin the healing process. What's holding you back? You can also check out my videos about the chakras as well, because by not releasing some of this energy, that's holding you back as well. And I did a video today about your solar plexus chakra, and this is one of the things that will help you heal your solar plexus chakra, so that you can stand in your purpose and that you can be the warrior or lion that you were meant to be. All right. Later.